Welcome to Get Rich Education. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Spend your money. Lots of it. Yes, a rare discussion on the benefits of spending your money. Then a great guest and I filter how to identify income property in just the optimum neighborhood with that optimum long-term tenant to make you more profitable. Today on Get Rich Education. Countless property investors get killed with maintenance costs, but that's far less likely when you buy brand new construction. Let me tell you about JWB Real Estate Capital in Jacksonville, Florida. They pioneered the build-to-rent model where you can invest in new construction, turnkey rental properties. That's why JWB was featured on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. To learn more and see inventory, go to newconstructionturnkey.com. Finally, Total Control Financial gives you checkbook control of your 401k and IRA money to invest in real estate. It's time to get your retirement money into your own checking account, but you've got to avoid the little-known tax that you'll pay with any self-directed IRA. Instead, it's time for the QRP. Learn more and get your free copy of the QRP book by text messaging QRP in all capital letters to 72,000.
You're listening to the show that has created more financial freedom than nearly any show in the world. This is Get Rich Education.
Welcome to GRE, from Yorkshire, England to York, Pennsylvania to New York, New York, and across 188 nations worldwide. I'm Keith Weinhold. This is Get Rich Education, and you're back in that abundant place where you don't follow money. Life's bigger than following money. You instead make durable streams of income follow you as you live your life. 5 great benefits to spending your money are: number 1, you beat inflation. Secondly, you don't lose money. It can never be taken away from you because you consumed it exactly how you wanted to. Thirdly, you guarantee yourself or those you love a better quality of life when you spend. Consider as well that you help the economy and you get to help it exactly where you want to, voting with your own dollars. And finally, spending is more fun than saving. Do you think that borders on the irresponsible? Well, we're going to deep dive today on the benefits of you actually spending your money shortly. But before we discuss the benefits of you spending your own money, there are a few things on the mental dashboard this week to share with you. Gold prices are up more than stocks so far in 2019. In the real estate world, both homeowner and rental vacancies are at those multi-decade lows at the same time. Do you realize how remarkable that is? Nationwide home price appreciation in the latest quarter ended was 4.3%. Yes, that's plus 4.3% for the median existing single-family home. Yes, of course, we do that sort of GRE conversion as to what that means to you. It's like I'm interpreting a language here. With leverage, if you've got 25% equity in a property, that's 4-to-1 leverage, and that's 4.3% appreciation, with your equity position increased fourfold to 17.2%. That's the translation. Now, let's talk about home price appreciation for just a minute. You know, there's always a story behind the story when it comes to statistics, and that's oh so true when it comes to economics. If annual home price appreciation was indeed 4.3%, well then think about what if the average home size is 2% greater this year than it was last year, because homeowners just say demand bigger homes and builders are indeed building them 2% larger. Well then, was it really a 4.3% appreciation rate then? Because in that case, it would be less appreciation on a square footage basis. What if the footage of the median home were exactly the same year over year, but now you had, say, more rural to urban migration, society urbanized slightly? So now, say homeowners had less footage than they did before, but besides having less footage, now that more of them live in urban areas, they have better access to amenities like public transportation. Well, shouldn't the value of increased proximity to amenities skew the appreciation number as well? What if year over year homes appreciated 4.3%, but now you have more upgraded homes than you did last year? More of them have heated floors and Nest thermostats, but still the price was only up 4.3%. So hedonics, like the better amenities in the home, made life just say 2% better. Well, how do you adjust for that? So these are just some things to keep in mind when you look at appreciation numbers. There's often a story behind the story. So also be mindful that if appreciation were 4.3%, like it really was, but inflation, not the government reported CPI, but the real rate of inflation was also 4.3%, well then just on that basis, your home didn't appreciate at all. Its price merely remained commensurate with inflation, hence its value was the same. Then you've only benefited if you're leveraged and you have a big loan on your property, meaning that you did not really leverage appreciation in that case. Technically, what you did is that you leveraged inflation, but you're still a beneficiary if you're leveraged. I think that inflation is something that you need to keep factoring in as a long-term trend. Just depend on it being there because it has been the long-term trend ever since the Federal Reserve System was created in 1913. Because look, technology is deflationary. Yet with all of this technology that we've seen for decades, whether it's the proliferation of overseas virtual assistants to you now doing your banking from a device that you slide into your pocket, meaning that bank tellers don't need to be hired anymore. These things drive down the cost of doing seemingly everything in your life. But with all that, technology still cannot stop inflation because the Fed will fight deflation. They'll just keep printing money. And if printing money doesn't make its way off the bank's balance sheets and into your pocket, then the U.S. government will find a way. They will write a check directly to you. George W. Bush helped make that happen in 2008 when he wrote nearly everyone a check for something like $600. Deflation means that the value of your dollar increases. Well, that would make you want to hold on to your dollar longer. And hoarding dollars is bad because that makes you postpone purchasing that boat that you want, and it makes you not want to invest because your dollar strengthens merely by you keeping it in your pocket. The next Fed meeting is next week. It'll be on the 18th of the month where the next rate change decision is delivered. And if they drop rates again like they did during their last meeting, that will indeed, yes, help stoke more inflation. The Fed wants more inflation than what they've got now. Now, I found it interesting that some millennials that want to buy a home soon, they say that they are waiting for home prices to drop. Now, that is almost funny. If you're in that situation, you could be waiting for a long time for home prices to drop. Now, in some highly priced markets, like the volatile coastal ones that we avoid investing in here, they have seen some price degradation. Darren Bloomquist and I discussed that here 2 weeks ago. But because millennials lived through the housing crisis 10 plus years ago, they think that it's somehow going to happen again. Well, home prices could surely fall again, but many think that the events of 10 years ago are once in a lifetime, really. I mean, those were steep national drops. Look, 10 or 12 years ago, here is what was going on. There was a housing oversupply. Irresponsible loans were being issued to people that didn't even have jobs or incomes, and there were unsustainable appreciation rates. Housing appreciating 30%, 40%, even 50% per year in some markets. Well, realize that today we have the opposite of those three things. Not a housing oversupply, but a housing undersupply in a lot of markets. We have responsible loans, and we have appreciation rates of 4 and 5%, quite sustainable there. Now, affordability is being constrained, and that sure can slow down future appreciation, maybe But as far as millennials waiting for years for housing prices to drop dramatically, yeah, you could be waiting for a really long time. But economic surprises do happen constantly. In 2015, people would have laughed out loud at you if you would have told them that Donald J. Trump would be our next president. Not even a year ago, everybody agreed that interest rates were going to go higher this year. And Fed Chair Jerome Powell even told us that that's what he was going to do. And all of that still got completely reversed. So all that you do know is that ultimately you don't know. Now, let's talk about spending your money. That's a topic where it seems like most everyone in the finance space wants to avoid talking about, right? Frugality is a virtue, some say. Well, first of all, does it drive you a little nuts to be around a person that's just outright cheap? And I'm not talking about a person that's just out of college, still finding their way in the world, still just starting out. I'm talking about a person that's age 38 or 45 and on a plane flight. They're so afraid, fearful of paying the fee to check their bag that they feel like they have to get to the front of the boarding line at their gate so that they can get on the plane as soon as possible to be sure that they have space to put their luggage in the overhead bin there. I mean, all that stress, plus bringing fewer belongings than they wanted to bring anyway, just so it could fit into a carry-on, all to save $50. We've got a name for that embarrassing character, Scarce Skip. Getting your hair cut at home instead of in the salon in order to save a grand total of $20 or $60. Hey, why would you really want to go watch a Major League Baseball playoff game in person when watching men's fast pitch softball down at the Moose Lodge is still free? Doesn't exactly sound like a lifestyle by design now. Look, when you're young or if you had a bad break, I mean, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do to get by. I understand that. I used to live in a pathetic, tiny pool house in Westchester, Pennsylvania. When I was just out of college, I paid $325 a month in rent. When you're young, you don't have much income and you don't have much worldly wherewithal to figure out how to find the income yet. But the older you get, it's even a little embarrassing to be around someone that's been out in the working world or in the investing world and they still act that way. It's pretty easy to detect shrinking thinking. Now, if a person acts like that, does that mean that a person is good with their money if they act that way with their luggage? Or does that mean that they're bad with their money? What do you think? If they're tight with their money, does that mean that they're good at finances or that they're bad at finances? I'd say that they're bad. They're either bad with finances or they're bad with their mindset or both. The top financial education that person probably got was in school, and school does not teach you finances. School is irrelevant when it comes to getting rich. Irrelevant. School might help you make $95,000 instead of $45,000, but it won't teach you anything about making millions or having financial freedom when you're still young enough to enjoy it. Nothing. School is irrelevant that way. 100% irrelevant. School might even be destructive that way. Now, it does teach you some good and some important things out in the world, but it reinforces a small financial mindset, and it tells you how to take orders and how to be a job worker. Aspire to be a job worker. That's what school does. Look, don't even waste your time cutting back on small expenses like cutting the cable or buying cheaper food or couponing or hunting some big sales at stores. You're going to be miserable and you can't cut your expenses below a certain threshold anyway. Should delayed gratification become a long-term lifestyle focus? No way, not at all. Instead, you invest in assets that create cash flow. You reinvest some of that money and you spend some of that money. Live your life and experience freedom. That's what you do. If you've been looking to the world for permission to spend money on something, well, you're going to find it here today. And that's if you've already got cash flow from assets like this first, however. That's what you got to do. And an asset produces cash flow where you don't need to be directly involved with producing that income every day. If you've already done that, well, then you've been responsible and you are a person that's good with your finances. Well, my question is, when are you going to enjoy it? And, this sort of summons the Power of Now episode somewhat that you heard here 5 weeks ago. Now, maybe you're thinking that you don't want your kids hearing this with you about the benefits of spending money. Well, we're talking to people that have built durable passive income streams first here. Let's talk about spending your money, consuming it, whether that's buying experiences or buying stuff, whether that's a trip to Sumatran jungles to try to discover a new animal subspecies, or going to Africa to see and feel the mist of Victoria Falls, or buying the most expensive BMW Motorrad motorcycle. Spending your money also allows you to beat inflation. If you want to buy a $100,000 RV this year, that's probably going to cost something like $104,000 next year. You beat inflation by spending now. Spending also means that you don't lose money. It can never be taken away from you because you consumed it and you did it exactly how you wanted to do it. You can aim for a target and hit exactly what you want. Spending means that you guarantee yourself a better quality of life. I mean, this is huge. Guaranteeing yourself a better quality in this one life that you have. That's what spending does. Or those that you love. It gives them a better quality of life. Maybe to you, that's living in a better neighborhood. Maybe that's living in a home with 2 bathrooms instead of 1, with a garage that you can finally park your car inside. Spending means that you help the economy. So you actually target which part of the economy that you want to help with your dollar. Your dollar is a vote. It's an economic vote. If you think the world needs to see more raw, unfiltered comb honey on the store shelves, well, sure enough, the more you spend your dollar on that, the more of it will appear. If you want more stores to carry organic food, then buy it. Your spent dollar is like an economic vote. The economic supply chain will stop supplying what is not bought. Well, I'm going to say something out loud and it's going to sound funny. Spending is more fun than saving. Yes, spending is more fun than saving. Now, no, you're not ready to spend if you're buried in credit card debt. No, you're probably not ready to spend if you have, say, a job that you dislike and you reason to yourself that just 1.5 more years of building cash flow passively is all that it takes for you until you quit that job. And that freedom is going to be wealth to you. So you're not quite spending that much yet. See, if that's the case, I get it. And I'm not trying to give you an answer so much. I'm not blanketly saying you should spend more because I just don't know your exact situation. It's more of a question that I have for you. And that question is, are you spending enough? Or are you going to be eternally frugal and invest until your net worth is that of Liechtenstein? So we're talking about the benefits of you spending your money. I want you to understand something. The only place that you get money is from other people. Did you ever realize this? Every dollar or euro or peso that's ever passed through your hands all your life came from another person. The Fed doesn't print money and give it to you. Every dollar that you've got in one form or another, it came from another person. So do you know what else that means? That means that people spent money on you in order for you to get it. So isn't spending your money then completely natural? It's part of the cycle as that next person gets money from you because every dollar that you have came from another person. Let's talk about some of the items that are typically worth you spending your money on. I mentioned some dreamier items already. Some of the more practical items worth you spending your money on are a mattress. You spend 1/3 of your life sleeping. It makes sense to get the absolute most comfortable most supportive mattress that you can practically afford. Start your day rested and rejuvenated. I mean, what's more important than that? What about your vision? Vision might be your most important sense. It's completely worth buying the most comfortable contacts or glasses if you need them. If you wear glasses, get the thinnest lenses. Buy daily wear contacts that have the latest breathable technology. Stop reusing your disposable contacts beyond the recommended usage. Get sunglasses with UV protection. What about great shoes that are supportive and not cheap? I mean, these are the feet that you're going to walk on every day for the rest of your life. Spend money on dental care. Throw away your $6 manual toothbrush and buy the best sonic toothbrush that brushes hundreds of times faster per minute. You cannot grow back your teeth or gums. If you have the ability to spend, buy better home appliances. Upgrade and actually enjoy your kitchens and bathrooms especially. They're the things that help you the most with resale value anyway. What about wellness and exercise? This is one part of life where, even though I feel highly disciplined in this area, I still hire a personal trainer for those days that I don't feel like working out and to kick me out of my ruts. I mean, think of how ridiculous it sounds if a person has strong cash flows or a lot of savings hoarded, and yet that person hasn't even cared for their own wellness. Vacations, lots of fresh and unprocessed food, and close to the best mobile phone that you can practically get are really some other great places to spend money. Think about how much time you spend on your phone. I've got the latest, fastest iPhone. Have a top phone. Your phone today, that is like the world's remote control. All this stuff enhances your quality of life. You've been listening to me weekly for nearly 5 years now. If you've already got your cash flowing real estate dialed in, ask yourself, what is this money for anyway? Money accumulated now is worth more than money in the future. Think about it for a minute. Why do people focus so much on saving and investing? It's so they can have more money later to spend. Otherwise, there would be no point in saving or investing. And the key is to spend less than you make, but still enjoy life in the present. A lot of people equate keeping some money liquid to increased security, and that is a good thing. It's always good to have some financial buffer. An emergency fund can help prevent you from going into debt. But that financial security, that really can help you sleep better at night. These are good things, but it's also good to have a healthy relationship with spending money. What if I put it this way? Spending money is an investment into yourself. It's an investment into your happiness. Spending money is an investment into your family. Now, do you tend more towards spending on experiences or spending on stuff like material items? I'm more of an experience guy than a stuff guy, but I don't know why the experienced crowd beats up on the stuff crowd so much. To each their own there, but the abundance mentality says have both. If you want both, have both experiences and nice stuff. You shouldn't have to choose between one or the other. Remember as well, sometimes material stuff can help you enable experiences, say in the way that if you bought new outdoor patio furniture, that can inspire summer cookouts and some camaraderie and having the neighbors over. So to best use your riches, you actually can combine experiences in material goods that way as well. Now, if you overspend, you're going to be trading short-term pleasure for long-term anxiety. That's probably not a trade-off that you want. They say that travel is the only thing that you buy that makes you rich. Maybe, I don't know about that. Real estate makes you rich, but I know what they're saying there. Believe me, a $10,000 trip to the Azores will probably make you happier than the difference between your net worth being $2.12 million and $2.11 million. Hashtag YOLO on that one. Life is about more than living for tomorrow. It's about living for today, too. I'm kidding here, but sometimes I think I should start a television show where I'm the host and I go to the houses of the personal finance experts who recommend that you keep a budget and cut back on lattes and count your pennies. And I'll go into their homes and show you how they actually spend their money. Yeah, they've got lavish homes on exotic islands, multiple homes. So delayed gratification should not be a long-term condition. You've got one life to live. Employer-sponsored retirement plans only provide you with cash later in life. And so many people are under the influence and the mindset of those. And that's probably why so many people mistakenly exalt the distant future above the now. Income-producing assets provide you with both cash now and cash later. You don't have to keep postponing your life. That's the point, and really, that's the good news. Real estate cash flow and money, they're really like your fuel. It's only your fuel. That stuff is just the mere potential for a better life. What are you going to do? Live a life where you've got all this fuel stored in tanks that you never burn, you never consume? And if you spend your money and you spend lots of it, well, good. That's a good thing, because that probably means that you made a lot of money. And you can never get it exactly right. But what people really want is this lifestyle smoothing effect where you meter out just about the right amount of spending throughout your life so that you don't defer life until later, but you also don't leave yourself penniless at traditional retirement age. Well, now, what about giving? Donations, that's related to spending, because both spending and giving consume your cash. You might allocate different locations for your spending, investing, saving, and giving in your life. Maybe you want to save the whales, save the honeybees, or maybe tithing to your church is important to you. A tithe is giving 1/10 of your annual earnings to your church. Or maybe it's something else that's more important to you. You need to hear about the $25,000 taco. Yes, I think that a great way for you to get some perspective on the trade-offs between spending and giving is this taco that you can buy for $25,000 at a resort. Okay, a while ago, CNBC reported one particular entree at a resort in Mexico is more than your average indulgence. The world's most expensive taco is specially prepared at Grand Velas Los Cabos Resort. This was on CNBC's Secret Lives of the Super Rich. Yes, ordering it will set you back $25,000. The taco's foundation is a gold-infused corn tortilla, like little bits of gold baked into tortilla. I don't know how unhealthy it is to eat that gold or how that works, but whatever they do, it is then layered with Kobe beef and lobster, and the toppings on this taco include black truffle brie, which costs $100 per ounce, and a dollop of beluga caviar, which costs $700 an ounce. And then there are more layers of gold added on the top to finish the taco. Well, what about what you see on these rich and famous shows? The $25,000 taco? Should this be seen as ridiculous or not? Should they instead donate that $25,000 to charity? They could have, but maybe they already do donate $10 million to charity. See, it's a slippery slope here. If you say that every indulgence, no matter how ridiculous it sounds, could have instead be money donated to charity, how far do you go? Should the $100,000 salary person that wants a $50K car instead buy just a $40K car so that they can donate $10K to charity? See what I mean? It's a slippery slope. How about the everyday person? Say you buy a $50 dinner tonight. Well, then should instead you buy a $20 dinner and donate that $30 discount to charity? See, if everyone in the U.S., about 130 million full-time employed persons, if they all downgraded from a splurge to get a similar item for less, well, then think about all the monies that charities would receive. Instead of a Nike sweatshirt, buy Fruit of the Loom. Buy RC Cola instead of Coke. See, this thing has no end. Should people go around buying the absolute cheapest stuff they can possibly afford because they can donate the difference to charity? No, I don't think they should. I don't think that I have the right to slap that $25,000 taco out of a wealthy person's hand. It's their money and they should spend it as they see fit. Although in my heart, I think $25,000 for a taco is a poor use of money. It's really only the richest people that get frowned upon for the $25,000 taco when they make it so visible on a television show. Well, with all this spending perspective, if you aren't spending enough money, realize that it only takes one person to change your life. That person is you. We're talking about the benefits of you spending your money. This is really important material for me to tell you about today, because what if I came into your life 5 years ago when this show began and I helped you build your passive income for your real estate portfolio, but you never understood that income is merely fuel. It's just potential. It's the outcome that you want ultimately. It's not the fuel. So my question is, are you spending enough money? A famous statesman, in fact, made a quote about just what I've been discussing today. Do you know this one? It's from Benjamin Franklin. Yeah. Benjamin Franklin said, "Wealth is not his that has it, but his that enjoys it." That's the quote from Benjamin Franklin. Wealth is not his that has it, but his that enjoys it. That means that having cash isn't wealth, but spending it is experiencing wealth. That's why a person with less money can be wealthier than a person with more money. If you've got expendable money and you've been looking for a nudge or a reason to spend it, you've got it here today. Get Rich Education means more than having a lot of money. It means living a rich life, whatever that means to you. Maybe it's that your money bought your time freedom. Well, if this whole spending chat made you dream because you know you're not quite there yet, a guest and I are going to have a chat about what makes a target neighborhood for your income property. You don't want to buy in a place that's too crummy, or you'll have bad tenants and the property won't appreciate. But you don't want to buy in a place that's too ritzy for your long-term rental, or else you don't get much rent income in proportion to the high purchase price that you had to pay for the property. So what makes for that sweet spot, that ideal range? That's next. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. This is Get Rich Education.
Would you like to know the easiest way to create wealth and passive income with real estate? This is Marco Santarelli with Norada Real Estate Investments. Now you can access the best deals without the stress or hassle of having to find, renovate, or manage those properties. We save you time by providing you with passive income investment properties in some of the best U.S. markets. Learn more by downloading your free copy of The Ultimate Guide to Passive Real Estate Investing. There's no obligation and nothing to buy. Simply visit passiverealestateguide.com and get your free copy today. That's passiverealestateguide.com.
For a real estate investor like you seeking an income property loan, go to Ridge Lending Group, NMLS 42056. Over the years, you've heard President Chaley Ridge generously devote her time to you here on the show as a guest. Ridge provides investment property loans in most U.S. states, and you're going to find out how they've helped more people realize their dreams of real estate financial freedom than any other mortgage lender in the entire nation when you get started at ridgelendinggroup.com.
This is Rich Dad Advisor Ken McElroy. Listen to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold and don't quit your daydream.
Well, it's great to have Colin back on the show. Welcome to Get Rich Education.
Thanks, Keith. Great to be back.
Colin is the property provider in Tampa, where we're having our real estate field trip next month. Colin, you concentrate on what you call resilient areas that are kind of just below where the median housing price is, as opposed to low-income properties or upper-end properties. Those properties really are not the best for generating cash flow. So tell us about what you mean by these durable, resilient areas that are somewhat just below that median house for the area.
Sure. I'd like to focus on basically all-American suburban areas, well-maintained lawns, pride of ownership evident on the street, lots of owners, a few renters, But they're lower middle class areas. It's not full of doctors and lawyers, for example. It's people that are more modest. And the reason I choose these areas is that the way I see things, there's people are always either moving up the ladder or moving down the ladder. And if things are going well,
right,
people are buying and renting better houses. They're upgrading from condos and duplexes to a small house. They're upgrading from a small house to a bigger house, maybe with a pool or a lake view, etc. And when things aren't going so well, people tighten their belts and they do the opposite. They're selling, or they're breaking leases on those nice pool homes. They're moving to more modest neighborhoods, etc. But either way, it always kind of stood to reason to me that if you position yourself in the middle of the ladder, or better still, slightly just one notch below the middle of the ladder,
right,
there'll always be rental and resale demand, no matter what else is going on in the wider market and the wider economy. So that simple principle that there's always demand in the middle, or slightly below the middle, is what I base my whole investing philosophy on.
In, I suppose, normal economic times, if you want to call it that, people dwell in all kinds of housing from both the low end and on the high end of the spectrum. But yeah, in the event of a recession, housing demand becomes rather unequal. Tell us a bit more about that.
I will. I mean, in every advanced economy, by far the largest segment of the population is middle class. And I mean lower or regular middle class. I'm not talking about upper middle class. I'm really talking about teachers, nurses, hospital technicians, government admin workers, police officers, retirees on a modest pension, people that work in call centers, support staff in big corporations. You know, these are the kinds of people I want to target. Those are the neighborhoods that I target, people that are renting and living in houses in those types of neighborhoods. And really, both in my research and on my on-the-ground experience here in Tampa, I found that, number one, the largest rental demand will always be in middle class and lower middle class neighborhoods. There are literally more people looking to rent property in these areas than any other area. So regardless of whether the real estate market is going up, down, or sideways, a low supply of houses relative to population growth always keeps rental rates incredibly resilient in lower middle class neighborhoods. I mean, they can go up and down, you know, every other kind of market class, but there is always rent in that middle segment. That's number one. Number two, the largest resale demand to owner-occupiers is always in lower middle class areas. It's very hard to sell a house if you're in a low income area, for example, because you're selling to an investor, you're selling based on your net operating income, based on your cap rate. But like, more people can afford homes in lower middle class areas. Therefore, more people buy homes in these areas. And it's a lot easier to sell a $150,000 house than it is to sell a $600,000 house. No matter what the economy is doing, you're going to get far more offers on a well-priced $150,000 home than a well-priced $600,000 home. So I've always believed in making my life easier by picking areas which are easy to rent and easier to resell. If I ever need to resell, if I'm ever trimming my portfolio to add a different type of property to it, I want to be in areas which make it easy for me to do so. And the third thing, which a lot of people might worry about by kind of going lower middle class instead of buying in areas which they really like, is that the tenant reliability and the average lease terms in these areas for well-vetted tenants is as strong as any other market segment. I'll drill into that a bit, Keith, because every market has a magic rental number above which it makes little or no difference to your tenant reliability. And in the areas of Tampa that I target with those teachers and nurses and admin workers, etc., the magic number is $1,100 per month in rent. If you go below $1,100, and particularly if you go below $1,000 a month, your pool of renters starts getting more restricted to lower income Section 8 tenants, and they just bring a different vacancy and maintenance headaches. And on the other side of that, tenants that are in really nice houses paying $2,000 or $3,000 a month, number one, you're getting much less cash flow in those property types because a $300,000 house doesn't cash flow twice as good as a $150,000 house, but the running costs certainly are twice as much.
Sure.
But those guys paying double or triple the lower middle class rent are no easier to deal with at all than tenants paying $1,100 a month. And they're often more demanding and more difficult to deal with. So you get less cash flow in those properties renting for $2,000 or $3,000 a month, but the property management is more or less the same. The tenants are sticking around just as long. So why wouldn't you want to buy in a lower middle class area if you know that you have the largest rental demand there? So it's very resilient in terms of your rental income. You know you have the largest resale demand there because there's more people buying houses in those types of neighborhoods than any other area. And there always will be, regardless of what else is going on in the world. And if the tenants renting those houses are just as reliable as the tenants in the fancy pool homes or the newer homes with the vaulted ceilings. So for me, it's always been pretty straightforward plan, is just target these nice suburban all-American neighborhoods with regular retirees, teachers, nurses, government admin workers, police officers, etc. They've done really well for my own rental properties, and for the investors that have been buying with us, for many, many years, they've always been very good as well.
You've given a great overview of the typical tenant profile that you would have in these type of properties. People that are responsible, people that have that pride of ownership, people that are mowing the lawn, people that are pulling the garbage can back from the street curb shortly after the garbage has been picked up for the week. And people read a lot about the demise of the middle class, and that's certainly true, but it is still the largest segment of Americans today. And we're talking largely about single family homes in these investor advantage neighborhoods in the Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater MSA, which is the full Census Bureau name of the MSA. And yes, you do have that greater resale value, of course, because you don't have to sell your property to investor. Savvy investors begin with the end in mind, and a great exit strategy, and one that people often use after you as the investor is held on for income for years, is luckily you might even do okay selling the property if we're in a mild recession, because when that new buyer comes in to buy your property, say 10 years down the road, yes, they don't need to make the numbers work. They might just buy it for emotional reasons. Whereas if this were a 4-plex or a 10-plex, they couldn't do that. The numbers would have to work and the numbers would have to make sense. In a lot of markets, and this is very market specific, it sounds like there in these Tampa submarkets, under $1,000 rent is the area in which you want to begin to avoid. Because a lot of times people could look at a property and it might look very good on a profit and loss spreadsheet. It might have a 1.2% rent to value ratio, and someone gets quite excited about buying that. But often those properties can be in blighted areas with a lot of crime, or it might even be a structure that's so old and has had so much deferred maintenance that there isn't much economic life left on the property. So a lot of times for operators, the question is, well, where do I draw that line between something that's just below the median and will get a good tenant and will provide cash flow? But how do I avoid that D-class area? And it sounds like the answer there is below the $1,000 rent threshold.
That's a good rule of thumb in Tampa, and it's a very easy mistake, particularly for newbies to make, is that they look at the property first. They're just looking at that cash flow statement and kind of making a decision on that, when really the property should be the third or fourth thing you're looking at. You should look at the market first, look at the neighborhood, look at who's selling it, look at who might be managing it, and then look at the house after that. So there's a lot of things you can do. The $1,000 a month is a good rule of thumb in the neighborhoods I'm in Tampa. But I also don't like to buy where there's too many renters compared to owners, for example. I don't like to buy in areas which are dominated by rentals. It's easy to rent. They're less easy to sell. I don't like buying older houses or frame homes, because they're the ones that have the deferred maintenance, which make that cash flow look ridiculous 6 months after you bought it. I don't like to buy in low income areas with high rates of employment or high rates of foreclosure. So if you're going to be driving around these areas, which, I'd always recommend, it's always very useful. I mean, I basically don't like to buy in areas where I see adults just hanging around all day long, staring at cars driving by. That's a warning sign to me. If you're in that kind of area, you're probably going to have your hands full. I like buying in areas where people are at work, people are retirees are mowing their lawns, they're bringing in their trash cans, they're taking care of their houses, just a regular neighborhood that you can recognize yourself. And if something seems so far different to what you'd consider a normal neighborhood, you should probably stay clear. You're not going to be comfortable there.
Yes, the term loitering does not correlate well with having the ability to pay the rent. Those are indeed the areas that you want to avoid. And oftentimes tenants that endure these conditions that would live in an obsolete structure are the same ones that are just out of options in life and would have difficulty paying the rent. I know those are the areas that you avoid. That is, like we say in real estate investing, between your property being economically occupied, meaning you actually have a tenant paying the rent, and only physically occupied, meaning there's a tenant in there, but they can't pay the rent, and that's what you avoid there. Colin, you're the provider of the property there in the Tampa Metro for our upcoming real estate field trip next month in the Tampa area, based at the Hyatt in St. Petersburg there. Tell us about the event.
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, you can get lots of information on it at realestatefieldtrip.com. It's going to be on from Thursday, October 10th to Saturday, October 12th. It's going to be in the Hyatt in St. Petersburg. October is a wonderful time of the year to visit Florida. I would thoroughly recommend that people make a long weekend of it and enjoy St. Petersburg and the greater Tampa area. But for the purposes of our event, Thursday evening is going to be low key. We're going to have a casual meet and greet at a really nice gastro lounge in downtown St. Petersburg. Friday is the main day with the presentations from obviously yourself, Keith, from me. And there's going to be a range of other special guests as well, talking about property loans, talking about insurance, talking about property management. There's going to be lunch provided, and really the very high quality of speakers. I'm going to be talking a lot about the Tampa market as well. And then on Saturday is also a pretty big day because that's the day where we've got a tour. We're going to be touring these neighborhoods that I've been talking about with you for the last 10 minutes. We're going to get a bus tour. We're going to be walking through multiple homes. You're going to be seeing what these properties are like, what these neighborhoods are like, what our renovation standards are like, what you get for your money in these areas. And I think it's going to be a really enjoyable and a really informative few days. And I definitely encourage people to look into it. And really, the places are very limited. We don't have a whole lot left. We've already had a very strong sign up for it.
I'm surprised with how many people have signed up so far, but I'm delighted. The power of the in-person event for you is that not only do you get to walk some cash flowing properties on that last day of the event, I think more importantly is that you get to meet your entire Tampa team, like Colin just told you about. You get to meet your property provider, property manager, mortgage loan officer, and insurance agent. I'm going to be speaking there as well. And, any investor knows how hard it is to get your entire team all in one place, all at one time. In fact, I think few investors ever do. Your team kind of exists in your head, but they will all be in one place here. And then also you'll get to meet and network with just other like-minded investors like you. Again, it's October 10th through 12th in Tampa, St. Pete, Florida. Get all the details and register at realestatefieldtrip.com. Colin, thanks for returning to the show.
Absolute pleasure, Keith. Thanks for having me.
You don't want to go below $1,000 in rent. That's just specific to this geographic market, of course. You want tenants and neighbors that care at least a little and show some pride of ownership, have some owner-occupants mixed into your rental neighborhood. That's what makes a good one. A lot of great ideas there about that target neighborhood and target tenant for a long-term rental that produces cash flow. We're going to look at those very places in the Tampa area, October 10th through 12th. After 5 years of you listening, I hope that we'll finally get to meet next month. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. One last time, get the event details and register at realestatefieldtrip.com. Don't quit your daydream.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.
The preceding program was brought to you by your home for wealth building, GetRichEducation.com.